Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching The World Report. Let's first take a look at our headlines. US President Donald Trump has announced that US, Russian and Ukrainian officials will meet at the Munich Security Conference to discuss an end to the war in Eastern Europe. US Vice President JD Vance has threatened sanctions and military action if Russia fails to agree peace. Meanwhile, President Trump is also eyeing a three-way summit with China's Xi and Russia's Putin in what could be the shaking up of the world order. The president also signed a memorandum to start calculating reciprocal tariffs on foreign countries. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has hailed a mega partnership with the US after meeting with President Trump. Trade and tariffs were discussed between the two leaders, with American oil exports, tariffs and Indian fighter jet purchases key topics of discussion. Police in Munich have named 24-year-old Farhad N as the suspect in an apparent car ramming attack. Officials say the Afghan asylum seeker who they believe was driving the vehicle had an extremist background. Germany's interior minister has vowed to carry out more deportations of Afghans after the incident, which injured at least 30 people. A high-stakes handshake and a so-called mega deal in the making. US President Donald Trump and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi meet in Washington, setting the stage for a potential transformation in trade, defence and diplomacy between the two nations. On the table, multi-billion-dollar defence agreements, including the potential sale of F-33 stealth fighters to India, as New Delhi seeks to modernise its military amid regional challenges. But there's more. Trump's push for reciprocal tariffs looms large, aiming to level the playing field on trade. Meanwhile, energy ties are set for a major boost, with India gearing up to increase its purchase of US oil and natural gas, strengthening strategic supply chains and reducing dependence on other markets. In a major diplomatic win for New Delhi, Trump has given the green light for the extradition of Tahir Rana, accused of aiding the 2008 Mumbai attacks. So, is this meeting about mutual benefit or a tough power play? Joining me first in the studio to discuss this meeting that's happened overnight, we have Joyita Basu, the editor of the Sunday Guardian. Joyita, thank you very much for joining me today. I think the first thing I'd like to talk about is this energy deal that is on the table. Why, firstly, is that so important to Narendra Modi?
Well, you see, whatever the conversations that happen, the bilateral that happened between the two leaders, one statement I think nobody is taking note of, and that is while Mr. Trump is talking about in terms of it is America's interest first, for India also it is India's interest first, and why not? And when you are looking at the energy deal, or rather that we have had with Russia, the reason why is Russia is supplying that kind of at a discounted price the supply of petroleum products and oil that is happening from Russia. So, while it is okay, and that was purely because of India's need and necessity, one of the reasons why...
Sorry to cut in, Joyita, just to bring up the visuals that we are seeing on screen. Narendra Modi is currently leaving. He's boarding his flight to return to India. We see him now, of course, live up the stairs as he enters the flight. Sorry, Joyita, I'll let you carry on.
Yeah. So, you see, that was India's interest that dictated that decision, even though India came under a lot of verbal sallies and threats from many Western countries. So, now if we are going to have this energy deal, if we are willing to buy from the US, we have bought from the US, it's not that we haven't, we have been, then they will have to match the price, simple as that. We are not going to, that is how the market functions, isn't it? The buyer decides where he will go, and you see, you cannot coerce him drag him into an expensive shop and insist that he must buy. It does not work like that. So, unless and until Mr. Trump is giving us a good deal, there is no reason why we should be buying from them. So, but I think here it is important that I think he is going to, because he is a total, he is a transactional president, he understands business, he understands deals. So, I think there will be a meeting of minds and a price point will be decided, which is okay for India's pocket.
Yes, absolutely. And you mentioned Russia there, Joyita. Of course, the fighter jets that have been proposed to India from the United States, there also could be a similar deal potentially from Russia. So do you think there could be a geopolitical shift here? And do you think the cards are in Modi's hands in terms of which side he takes to or chooses to take those fighter jets from, and what could be the ramifications?
Well, actually, first of all, India is in dire need of fighter jets. Okay, let's not forget that India needs, I think, 200 a year or something like that. India is in dire need. So, how do you handle a situation? You need these jets, but you also need technology transfer, basically TOT, what is known as TOT, transfer of technology. And you also basically you need to manufacture them in India. You see, one of the reasons why the US was not offering F-35 to us was because we had bought S-400 from Russia, and their problem was that that S-400 can read F-35 signatures. The markers, certain markers are there. So, that is the reason why they were not willing to give us. But obviously, Mr. Trump is ready to offer it to us, but the thing is, again, it is a choice for India. The price point is of extreme importance. But at the same time, when you are looking at Su-57, which is the Russian, and when you are looking at F-35, now which one is a better aircraft? Because you see, Israel currently uses F-35, it is an excellent aircraft. This tearing down of they kind of took down Iran's, on October 1st, actually later in October, that attack that Israel carried out post Iran's missile attack on Israel. So, you see, that was led by stealth aircraft, and that was the F-35 that led the attack. They decimated Iran's whatever rudimentary, and S-300 they have it, in fact. The air defense system that they had, they decimated it. So, F-35 is also very effective, but again we have to, and if India has to go for it, I think it is the only country in the world which is being offered both aircraft by the Russians and the US. It does not happen like that. Well, you have to build up an ecosystem. So, if you want to buy American weapon systems like that, you have to understand it in terms of what India's inventory is like. India is 60%, I would say, defense material which India has bought from Russia because of historical reasons, and that there is a legacy to it. So, as a result of which, what has happened is that our systems, the ecosystem is geared for Russian aircraft in particular, but at the same time we also have got Rafale from the French. We are also diversifying, buying defense material from different countries. We are manufacturing at home. So, we have to, if we are going for the F-35, we have to first ensure technology transfer, manufacturing in India, we need to build up an ecosystem, and we also have to get all those codes, etc. I mean, if you are talking about F-35 being given to us, you just cannot say that you give the F-35 and every day you get instructions from us and only then you can fly the F-35. It is not going to work like that. So, you see, it is a tough call, it is a very tough call, which can only the defense experts and the government, they can sit together and all, because Su-57, it is much easier to induct it into the Indian system, but F-35, it is also highly advanced. So, right now it is up in the air.
And we'll wait to see what decision is made. Also joining us on this discussion is Ashok Sajjanar, who is a former diplomat. Thank you very much for your time, Ashok. What I'd like to look at is the threat of reciprocal tariffs. Although these discussions have gone well, we've got Make India Great Again, a slogan. The mega deal is also another slogan from this conversation. But the reciprocal tariffs do loom over. And there is, of course, a potential there that Trump is going to look to impose these tariffs on India. What impacts could that have on India's finances?
Okay, as far as thank you very much for having me. As far as the tariffs are concerned, were they to be imposed, I think they do have the potential of having a serious impact on India's economy. But I think we are also hopeful that we will be able to avoid them for a variety of reasons. And I'll tell you that because, both the leaders agreed, and it is reflected in the joint declaration, that there will be a bilateral free trade deal, the first tranche of that, which will be finalized by September, which means that the senior officers of the two countries, the Secretary of Commerce and USTR from the American side, and the counterparts from India, they will get proactively into negotiations, trying to find, what are the areas, what are the products that are of interest to the United States to send to the Indian market and vice versa. So I think there the conversation would be going on, and when the conversation is going on, it is not only not appropriate, but it doesn't help matters that you start imposing these reciprocal tariffs, because if one country proposes that you are going to put tariffs, then there will be retaliatory tariffs, like happened last time when Mr. Trump had imposed these 10% tariffs on aluminum and steel. So it is during that period, when the negotiations are going on, I think that will be, possibly this will not come into operation. I think this threat of increased tariffs is really used as a negotiating leverage by Mr. Trump, so that he can get, a better deal than he would otherwise have got. The third point is that, in our budget, which was presented on the 1st of February, we have already made a certain initial, so to say, decisions on items of interest to the United States, whether it is Harley Davidson motorbikes, or it is super luxury cars, or it is EV batteries, etc. So I think the United States is quite clear that India is willing to play ball, willing to negotiate tough and hard, but yet willing to negotiate. The last point here I would like to make is that the two countries have decided that the bilateral trade level should increase from the current 190 billion to 500 billion in 5 years' time. And I think if we have to work on that, imposing tariffs on each other is not the best way to go about it, because when you impose tariffs, then the two-way trade comes down rather than going up. So I think for all these reasons, we should be able to evade these the threat of these tariffs, reciprocal tariffs.
Ashok, Sajjanar, very quickly before we go, we don't have very long left, but I do want to bring up the green light that's been given by Donald Trump for the extradition of Tahir Rana. What's the implication of this, not just in America, but also back in India?
Because, this is something that, this is a chapter that needs to be closed, 2611, in which 167 people died. Many of them were Americans, many of them were Jews, and basically those terrorists who had come from Pakistan, they had targeted foreigners, particularly Americans and Jews, because they wanted to send out a message that they will not be safe anywhere, and they wanted to send out a message that India is not safe for business. So this will be concluding this particular, closing that particular chapter. The other is that both the countries are on the same page as far as dealing with terrorism is concerned. And Prime Minister Modi also said that the cross-border terrorism emanating from Pakistan and coming to India, both countries have decided that they will jointly act against it. So I think whether it is this, and there were some questions on the Khalistani extremists also operating in the United States, I think both leaders are on the same page as far as all these issues of terrorists, extremists, militants are concerned.
Ashok, thank you very much for your time. Also, thank you to Joyita for joining us. We now move to the Gaza truce, which is under threat. Israel said if Hamas does not release hostages by Saturday, the ceasefire will end. This happened after an Israeli drone took down a rocket launcher in the Gaza Strip. Watch the latest in this report.
In official statements, IDF officials commented that they detected a failed rocket launch from Gaza that did not reach Israeli territory. After detecting the failed rocket launch, an Israeli drone struck down the rocket launcher in Gaza. The IDF stated the army is committed to the complete implementation of the terms of the agreement for the release of the hostages.
אנחנו לא נקבל את הפרת ההסכם. במהלך שחרור חטופינו היום, כולנו ראינו מראות מזעזעים. הבהרנו למתווכות שאנחנו לא מוכנים לקבל שום סיכון לחטופינו. ואני מוסיף על כך, מי שיעז לפגוע בחטופינו, דמו בראשו.
Hamas assured that, no matter what, they wish to honor the ceasefire agreement and continue releasing the hostages.
الفرحة الكاملة لو انه خسرت كل ربعي واهلي لكن فرحان ومبسوط انه جاي على بلدي وعلى منطقة السجاعية. كل الفرحة بإرادة رب العالمين انه روحنا على غزة على السجاعية.
An Israeli spokesperson reaffirmed Prime Minister Netanyahu's set deadline of Saturday and commented that failing to meet the deadline could end the ceasefire. According to reports, at least 48,239 people have been killed, and more than 111,000 have been injured so far by Israeli attacks on Gaza since October 2023. Who's to say what will happen if the ceasefire fails? Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's grab the latest from the world of business. TikTok has returned to US app stores of Apple and Google. This follows President Donald Trump's delay of a ban on the Chinese-owned social media app. He has assured the tech giants they will no longer face fines for disrupting or maintaining the app. Two US lawmakers have strongly condemned the UK's request for encrypted data held by Apple. The UK describe it as dangerous and short-sighted. The request is for access to encrypted data stored by Apple users worldwide in its cloud service. Senator Ron Wyden and Congressman Andy Biggs have written to National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard. They stated that the demand threatens the privacy and security of the US. Ukraine has completed work on a draft minerals agreement and handed it back to the United States. Sources say that the US side has requested until 5 p.m. GMT to review the agreement. This deal is central to Kyiv's efforts to gain the support of President Trump as he works to bring about a rapid end to the war with Russia. Flags Unlimited, a Canadian flag maker, has seen its sales double compared to a year ago. The surge in sales comes as tensions with the United States have sparked a wave of patriotism. The increase in sales also coincides with Canada's National Flag Day on February the 15th. This day marks the 60th anniversary of the red and white maple leaf flag's debut in Ottawa. New bank loans in China surged to a record high in January, exceeding expectations. This increase came as the central bank took steps to support a patchy economic recovery. This move has reinforced expectations of more stimulus in the coming months, particularly as US tariffs threaten to add more pressure to the economy. An Afghan asylum seeker has been arrested in relation to the Munich car ramming attack that wounded at least 30 people. Munich Mayor Dieter Reiter said a number of people were being treated for severe injuries and were in a life-threatening condition. Here is the latest.
A car ramming attack in the southern city of Munich has wounded 30 people, injuring some individuals severely. The police has arrested an Afghan asylum seeker in relation to the attack so far. The attack came on the eve of an international security conference in the Bavarian city and amid a heated debate in Germany on immigration ahead of February 23rd elections following similar attacks. The Mini Cooper car barreled into a trade union demonstration, leaving victims and their belongings scattered. Shoes, glasses, infant stroller were seen lying on the street following the attack. The mayor of Munich, Dieter Reiter, said that a number of people were being treated for severe injuries and were in a life-threatening condition. The police fired a shot at the battered car and detained the driver, who is identified as Farhad, a 24-year-old young man. The latest attack comes after the deadly German market attack that claimed 6 lives. While the investigation has been handed over to the regional prosecutor's office, the authorities have indicated an extremist motive behind the attack.
Fährt eine Situation ist, die im Prinzip millionenfach jeden Tag, zu jeder Stunde, an jedem Ort unseres Landes im Prinzip so stattfinden kann.
Insofern kann ich eine solche Situation nicht von vornherein verhindern. Wir müssen sehen, wo sind Personen, die gefährlich sind. Aber auch hier gilt, soweit wir im Moment wissen, ist der Täter bislang durch Ladendiebstähle aufgefallen, aber nicht durch Gewalttaten. Das muss aber noch näher ermittelt werden.
Bureau Report, NewsX.
We'll stay in Europe for more of the latest news. Moldova and Romania have summoned Russia's ambassadors after drones from the war in Ukraine struck their territory. No casualties were reported. Airspace violations have become frequent as Russia targets Ukrainian ports near their borders. Moldova's president condemned the attack, saying drones exploded on Moldovan soil, putting lives at risk. Authorities confirmed drone fragments were found in multiple locations. The number of foreign workers reporting exploitation on UK farms has risen sharply. Nearly 700 seasonal labourers sought help last year over claims of bullying, underpayment and poor working conditions. That's up from just over 400 in 2023. The UK government says it takes decisive action against abuse. The Workers' Support Centre of the UK has reportedly received little to no help. Russian national Alexander Vinnik has arrived in Moscow after being released in a US prisoner swap. Convicted of cybercrime, he pleaded guilty to money laundering charges last year. Speaking to Russian media, Vinnik thanked President Vladimir Putin and others for securing his release. He also acknowledged former US President Donald Trump, saying the exchange might not have happened without him. Ukraine has acknowledged losing ground in Russia's Kursk region. The nation now holds only a third of the land it initially seized. Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky said Ukrainian forces now control around 500 square kilometres, down from nearly 1,400. The territory was taken during a surprise offensive last year, while Kyiv hopes to use the remaining land as leverage in future negotiations with Moscow. Austria's far-right Freedom Party is demanding a new general election after coalition talks collapsed. The FPO, which narrowly won the September election, failed to form a government with the People's Party, Social Democrats and Liberal NEOS. Leader Herbert Kickl says there is no choice but to hold another vote. He hopes to secure a clear majority to govern without coalition partners. French Prime Minister Francois Bayrou is under pressure over claims of abuse at a Catholic school. Lawmakers are demanding he clarify whether he knew about allegations of violence and rape of minors between the 1970s and 1990s. The Socialists want answers since he was the education minister in the 90s. Bayrou, appointed in December, faces a divided parliament and relies on socialist support to govern. That is it for now, but we'll be back soon with more of your international news.